Sidutru Part 6. I'm Talisman Skulls, Warlock and founder of Sidutru, also known as the Arc Warlock, as an honorary title among those who have embraced Sidutru and its most basic principles. On the subject of paraphernalia, a legitimate question that's asked by people who want to know more about this and want the real culture-based thing is all the different paraphernalia really necessary? No, it's not. And let me tell you something. The ones who tell you it's a 50-50 and then turn around and says, well, it depends on if you're doing this or this, as opposed to going out in the field and dancing around naked like that. They're putting a hook, a line, and a sinker to get your trust, to get you to break down, and then convince you that you might want to go ahead and buy it anyway, just in case, because it's better to at least have it on hand than be in the middle of doing something and realize you don't have it later. The only reason why that so-called shit paraphernalia of theirs is necessary is because it's how they support themselves, and like any other tourist trap thing, overpriced shit you can make for yourself for $5.95 US dollars, as in $5.95, or just pretty much walk along any fucking area in your neighborhood, you see an interesting sharp little stone, pick it up. If it looks like an arrowhead, even if it's not, pick it up, you know? And if you see a pretty nice piece of wood that catches your attention, you know, pick it up, put the two together when you can. And if you're going to use it as a personal practice, whatever, just realize you're not actually building something in the sense of what they usually tell you is like a wand or something. It's no. That's where you're kind of letting your own inspiration lead you. And you're also going to, in that particular case, you are going to want to look up more into like Native American and some of the Siberian shamanistic basic concepts about that, because warlocks and witches do have a lot of ties with that, but they're not that specifically. And you can make it yourself, but you don't really need it. As an example, all right, let me see if I got something here. What can I show you here? All right, here's one for you. Okay, probably can't see it too well. It's a nice little dark stone, whatever. It was naturally polished. This wasn't some tumbled thing that I bought in some bullshit shop. This actually came off the beach. Right? And it's a reminder. It's a reminder of the things that I learned that day, the main points that stuck with me. And that's kind of how it works. And if you get like, you know, you have a piece of cloth, maybe from an old pair of clothing of yours that you normally just throw away, go ahead and save it. And when you get some time, get yourself a pair of scissors. Maybe if you're going to be cutting yarn, you know, something like a kitchen knife or whatever, just to, okay? It's not a ritual object, it's a fucking knife. You cut steak with it, maybe some cheese. It's not going to float around here for you, and it doesn't represent the masculine. You ever hear the joke about Freud? Sometimes the knife is just a fucking knife. Well, it's the reality of it. The only real reason why warlocks and witches carry things like knives and spears is because, for one, they were living in a hunter-gatherer society originally, and they continued to have those things to protect themselves against some psychopath or wild animal that was going to kill them or eat them, or both. You know, not necessarily in that order, and who knows? Maybe a particularly frisky bear was going to arima-way them, we'll just put it that way. That's nasty, but it's true. So, you know, within Sidutru, there's none of that paraphernalia. It's not a requirement. It's just not that. It does not make you a warlock or a witch any more than a priest goes walking around all the time with a wand or a special knife or something. It just isn't necessary, and it's not done. People want to know what the terms are for the authentic cultural roots. Okay, here's one for you. Holiday. It's, you know, other than being pronounced as holiday or holiday, even with it being a G, it hasn't changed. That's the same word. And it literally meant holy day and healing day, and you know, things along those lines. It's all the same root, same meaning, and that's what gave it the meaning. Holy stones. Holy stones were actually memorial stones, like pretty much grave markers, and also ones that had eulogies, ones that recorded events from the actual cultural history, which also should go and show you that most people, before it was imposed on them, later on by the politicians that wanted to keep it only for like a rich person's club, and only through the institutions as established by the Catholic Church at the time under their definitions and how they chose to re-educate everyone. Basically, literally, like a cultural re-education camp. That is pretty much the fact that people knew how to read that shit. And it wasn't just warlocks and witches who knew how to inscribe things in Akhwam or in the runes or whatever. And they actually understood what the things were. And I tell you what, rune does not mean mystery or secret. Rune comes from the same source as the word rowan. And rowan is the source of the modern word rowan. And both have their roots in the meaning of the word red. And this is because runes were stained red when they were carved on gray stones. And they weren't magical, mysterious writing to anybody except those who didn't know anything the fuck about them. So again, it's another definition by association and assumption, not literal etymology or meaning. So if they can't even get something as simple as that right, you think they're going to be honest with the word warlock or witch or anything else for these actual cultural roots, you can fucking forget it. The second part is, if you're going to be a real warlock or witch, you're going to definitely be more interested in the actual culture, because you are representing the culture. And you are going to also be willing to see where other people have actually made some legitimate discoveries and determine whether or not it's appropriate for the here and now. For example, it's not appropriate for the here and now going around punishing people by giving them the blood eagle. That's bad. Okay? That ain't a good thing to do. It's right up there with the same thing of burning people at the stake and hanging them from nooses and all the other yucky stuff that everybody was doing to each other over ideology, politics, and bullshit. And definitely said not everybody was down for that. Most people were acting out of fear or out of command from their so-called perceived authorities at the time. It had nothing to do with their religious beliefs. It had everything to do with their trying not to get the attention of their tyrants and those that were serving their interests. What about the term holy well? Again, that is a term that goes way back, and it is a legitimate term, and basically was any spring that was used when water was picked up, sprinkled on the head as a ceremonial purification rite before entering into the goat house, which means good house, is a temple. But we also have things called a seed horn, and a seed horn is literally a customary horn, and there were several types of them. There was the basic one for personal use, this drinking from utility wives, basic tool for drinking for on your table. It's literally your dishes. To the ceremonial ones, which were different, which would basically be referred to as the holy horns, and there is some references to those. And it wasn't the big trumpets people played to announce coming in. Those were the ones that pretty much were similar to the concept of the peace pipe, just you weren't smoking from it, you were sharing drinks with it. And the custom of that included taking a drink first yourself, as the one that's offering it, showing that it's not poison as a gesture of trust, and then handing it over to the next person to drink from as a way of showing that in essence you are on the same level with the person and welcoming them to your land, or being welcomed by someone to their territory. And these particular ones were often held up while people were passing through potential rival territories, so that those around would see that being held up, not as a white flag, but as a, we're not here to fight, we're on a peace mission, don't worry about it, you know. And that's actually got some records that are hinted at in the different things like Beowulf. If you want to know what a funeral rite was like, read Beowulf. You want to know what the culture was like, listen to what people are saying in those writings, including the ones that got pissed off about having terms put on them that, and saying that the words meant something other than what they've known them to mean for thousands of years, and trying to redefine them under Catholic claims. It wasn't, you know, all Catholics, but it was mostly these monks that they were bitching about, lying about them. And that's what also caused a lot of hostilities, which is not unjustifiable, just like it's not unjustifiable for a bunch of Catholics to get pissed off. You say all Catholic priests are baby rapers, you know, or shit like that, and it's the same deal. So again, if you're going to be a true warlock or witch, you're going to look at the customs, and you're going to grow with that. So there you go. It does what's called. Get ready for part 6.